In this house on a quiet street in Adelaide's West, police allege a wife was murdered by her 91-year-old husband. Maria De Marci is the fifth woman killed in less than 3 weeks in South Australia. Neighbours and the tight-knit Italian community are in shock.
It's very sad. It's very sad.
I don't understand why it happens.
While the latest case is complex because the charged man has dementia, advocates are sounding alarm over a recent spike in domestic violence-related deaths in South Australia. On the 15th of November, a 44-year-old woman was found dead. A man known to the victim has been charged with murder. 1 day later, a 45-year-old woman from regional South Australia was allegedly murdered by her partner. The third victim was a 39-year-old woman. 2 days later, Jodie Jewell was fatally shot by her estranged husband. He was found dead after a statewide manhunt.
As we understand it, it's potentially the worst week for fatal domestic and family violence in one jurisdiction in recorded Australian history.
I have been absolutely devastated by the recent murders of women allegedly at the hands of partners or former partners. Their deaths are absolutely unacceptable.
So far this year, there have been more than 15,000 family and domestic abuse-related offences reported to SA Police, up 10% from last year.
Gender-based violence is an epidemic.
Advocates are calling for a royal commission into the issue. Mary Leaker from Lobby Group in Bolden is leading the charge, and Maria De Marci's death has increased pressure on South Australia's Premier to hold one.
So this is a whole of community call. South Australians are asking our Premier to commit to a royal commission and implement it immediately.
The Premier hasn't ruled out a royal commission and says he's asked his department to examine the findings of one held in Victoria in 2015. In the meantime, he's convened a roundtable to be held next week to hear from domestic violence experts, including Mary Leaker.
From our perspective, a roundtable is not a royal commission. A royal commission will give us an opportunity to really hear directly from victim survivors and the people working with people experiencing violence to make sure that we understand what more we can do to keep people safer.
One path is a royal commission that we're considering. Other paths include looking at what else can be done in the area of prevention, intervention, response, recovery and healing. So we are taking rightly the time to deeply consider the path forward.
If there is no royal commission, I'm afraid that this will just be a band-aid solution.
Arman Abrahimzadeh has been personally affected by domestic violence. In 2010, his father murdered his mother, Zara, in front of hundreds of people at the Adelaide Convention Centre.
Here we are 13 years later after my mum's death. Every single time I come across a death that is as a result of family and domestic violence, it essentially takes me back to that moment and that night. There are changes that are happening, but I guess one can argue that given the tragedies that have taken place recently, those changes aren't coming soon enough.
This plan rightly focuses on shifting gender inequality.
As part of a national plan to end gender-based violence in one generation, South Australia has committed to a range of measures, including criminalising coercive control. But Arman believes a fresh perspective is needed for meaningful change.
With a Royal Commission, that's probably the mechanism that will pull everything apart and essentially look at everything in detail.
My dad was the head of the household. What he said went.
Arman's been working with students and prison inmates to encourage healthy relationships between men and women. He says more investment in these types of programs is needed.
Intimidation, threat to harm, threat to kill, and that's where it ended up.
If we are serious about family and domestic violence, if we're serious about preventing this, if we're serious about stopping these tragedies from happening, reducing them, then we need to better engage with men, and we need to make sure we have a long-term strategy that involves men in this issue.
We do think that South Australia is lagging behind some other jurisdictions in terms of funding for the domestic family and sexual violence sector, and also investment in primary prevention and early intervention.
Domestic and Family Violence Prevention Minister Katrine Hilliard wouldn't be drawn on the claims of underfunding, but did concede her government has work to do.
This ongoing prevalence of violence toward women, the attitudes, the disrespectful attitudes, the gender inequality that underpins that violence, that prevalence of violence against women, is absolutely a call to do more.
Advocates fear the stress of the holiday season means Maria Damasi's death won't be the last this year.
Our frontline services are very concerned about the likely spike in instances of intimate partner violence over the festive season, and are preparing our services for that spike.